Ex-wife cheated and left me for her rich boss and got pregnant. But when I inherited millions, she wants me to pretend I'm the father and is begging me for another chance. I never thought I'd be posting my story here, but I need to get this off my chest. I'm a 32-year-old guy, and up until about a year ago, I thought I had a pretty good life. I had a stable job as a software developer, a nice apartment in the city, and what I believed to be a loving wife. Sarah and I had been married for 5 years, and while we had our ups and downs like any couple, I thought we were happy. Boy, was I wrong. It all started to unravel about 14 months ago. Sarah had been working as an executive assistant at a prestigious law firm for the past couple of years. She'd always been ambitious, and I was proud of her for landing such a great job. Her boss, let's call him Richard, was a hotshot lawyer in his mid-40s, divorced, no kids, and apparently quite the charmer. I started noticing small changes in Sarah's behavior. She was working later hours, constantly texting, and seemed distracted whenever we were together. When I tried to talk to her about it, she'd brush it off, saying she was just stressed about work. I wanted to believe her, but something felt off. Then came the night that shattered my world. I had surprised Sarah by coming home early from a work trip, hoping to take her out for a nice dinner. Instead, I walked in on her and Richard in our bed. Our fucking marital bed. I don't think I'll ever forget the look on her face, a mix of shock, guilt, and something else. Not remorse, but almost annoyance at being caught. Richard, to his credit, looked genuinely embarrassed and quickly excused himself. What followed was a blur of shouting, crying, and accusations. Sarah admitted that the affair had been going on for months. She said she hadn't meant for it to happen, but Richard made her feel alive in a way I apparently never had. To twist the knife even further, she told me she was leaving me for him. I was devastated. The next few weeks were a haze of depression and anger. I threw myself into my work, barely eating or sleeping. My friends tried to help, but I pushed them away. I just couldn't believe that the woman I loved, the person I thought I'd spend my life with, could betray me like this. The divorce proceedings were ugly. Sarah wanted half of everything, despite the fact that I'd been the primary breadwinner throughout our marriage. Her lawyer, not Richard, thankfully, was aggressive, painting me as a neglectful husband who had driven her into the arms of another man. It was infuriating, but I was too emotionally drained to fight back as hard as I should have. In the end, we settled. I gave up more than I should have, just to be done with it all. The apartment, most of our savings, even the dog she'd never really cared for, I let her take it. I just wanted her out of my life. For months after the divorce, I was a shell of my former self. I moved into a tiny studio apartment, threw myself into work, and avoided any kind of social interaction. My friends were worried, but I couldn't bring myself to care. The betrayal had broken something inside me, and I didn't know how to fix it. Then, about 6 months ago, something unexpected happened. My uncle, who had always been close to but hadn't seen in years due to a family feud, passed away. To everyone's surprise, he left me the bulk of his estate. We're talking millions, enough to never have to work again if I didn't want to. At first, I didn't know how to react. The money felt like a cruel joke. Where was this when I was fighting Sarah in the divorce? But as the reality sank in, I started to see it as an opportunity for a fresh start. I quit my job, sold everything I owned, and decided to travel the world. For the first time in over a year, I felt a glimmer of hope. I visited places I'd only dreamed of, met amazing people, and slowly started to rediscover myself. The pain of Sarah's betrayal began to fade, replaced by a sense of freedom and possibility. I was in Bali, about to embark on a yoga retreat. Yeah, I know, cliché, but it was actually pretty awesome, when I got the call that turned everything upside down again. It was Sarah. My first instinct was to hang up, but curiosity got the better of me. Her voice was shaky, and she sounded like she'd been crying. What she told me next left me speechless. Sarah was pregnant. Very pregnant, in fact, about 7 months along. And here's the kicker, the baby wasn't Richard's. It was mine. Apparently, in the chaotic last few weeks of our marriage, when the affair was in full swing but before I caught them, we had one last desperate, angry hookup. I barely remembered it, to be honest, it was more about hurt and resentment than any real connection. But according to Sarah, that's when it happened. She went on to explain that things with Richard had fallen apart spectacularly. He'd promised her the world, a lavish lifestyle, travel, a future together. But when she told him she was pregnant, he'd panicked. Turns out, Mr. Hotshot Lawyer had lied about being unable to have kids. He already had 2 from his previous marriage that he never saw and didn't want anyone to know about. Richard had immediately pushed for an abortion, saying it would ruin both their lives and careers. When Sarah refused, he dumped her, threatened to ruin her professionally if she ever told anyone about the baby, and essentially left her high and dry. Now, here she was, 7 months pregnant, jobless, she'd quit her position at the firm to avoid the scandal, and desperate. And that's when she'd heard through the grapevine about my inheritance. Sarah's proposal was breathtaking in its audacity. She wanted us to get back together. She suggested we could pretend the baby was the result of a post-divorce reconciliation. She talked about how we could be a family, how she'd realized what a mistake she'd made, and how the baby was a sign that we were meant to be together. I listened in stunned silence as she laid out her plan. She even had the nerve to suggest that with my newfound wealth, we could give our child the kind of life we'd always dreamed of. As if the money changed anything about what she'd done. When she finally ran out of steam, I took a deep breath and told her I needed time to think. In reality, I needed time to stop myself from saying all the cruel things that were running through my mind. That was 2 weeks ago. Since then, I've been on an emotional roller coaster. On one hand, the idea that I have a child on the way is overwhelming. Despite everything, there's a part of me that's excited about being a father. I've always wanted kids, and the thought of missing out on my child's life is painful. But on the other hand, the anger and betrayal are still there. Sarah's actions destroyed our marriage and nearly broke me. The fact that she only reached out when she found out I had money is so transparent it's almost laughable. And the idea of pretending to be one big happy family, of letting Richard off the hook for his part in all this, makes my blood boil. I'm torn between my desire to be there for my child and my instinct to protect myself from further pain. The rational part of me knows that co-parenting with Sarah would be a nightmare. She's proven herself to be selfish and untrustworthy. But can I really walk away from my own kid? There's also a petty part of me that wants to reject her outright, to let her face the consequences of her actions. But I know that would only hurt the innocent child in all of this. I've considered offering financial support for the baby while maintaining minimal contact with Sarah, but I'm not sure if that's even legally possible. And if I'm honest with myself, I'm not sure I could stay away if I knew my child was out there. So here I am, Reddit. A soon-to-be father, an unexpected millionaire, and completely lost. I never imagined my life taking this turn, and I have no idea what the right thing to do is. Do I give Sarah another chance for the sake of our child? Do I reject her but try to be involved in the baby's life? Or do I walk away entirely and try to put this whole mess behind me? I'm open to any advice, similar experiences, or just words of support. Thanks for reading this far. Writing it all out has been cathartic, even if I'm no closer to a decision. TLDR, ex-wife cheated, left me for her boss, then got pregnant with my child. Now that I've inherited millions, she wants to reconcile and pretend we're one big happy family. I'm torn between my desire to be a father and my instinct to protect myself from further heartbreak. Edit 1. Wow, I didn't expect this post to blow up like it did. Thank you all for your support, advice, and even the tough love. I've read every comment, and it's given me a lot to think about. I'll try to address some of the most common points. 1. DNA test. Yes, this is absolutely happening before I make any decisions. I've already contacted a lawyer to discuss how to proceed legally. 2. Sarah's motivations. Many of you have pointed out, rightly, that Sarah's sudden desire to reconcile is almost certainly about the money and her own desperate situation. I agree, and it's one of the main reasons I'm hesitant. 3. Legal advice. I'm meeting with a family law attorney next week to discuss my options. I want to know exactly what my rights and responsibilities are before I make any moves. 4. Mental health. Several people have suggested therapy, and I think you're right. This whole situation has brought up a lot of unresolved feelings, and I could use some professional help sorting through them. 5. The baby. A lot of you have shared stories about growing up with parents who stayed together for the kids and how damaging it was. That's definitely something I'm taking into consideration. I'm still processing everything, but your comments have helped me gain some clarity. I'll post an update once I've taken some concrete steps. Thanks again, Reddit. Edit 2. It's been a whirlwind few days, but I wanted to give you all an update since you've been so supportive. First, I met with the family law attorney. She was incredibly helpful and laid out all my options. The key points. I have every right to request a paternity test, and it's strongly advised that I do so before taking any other steps. If the child is mine, I can pursue shared custody without reconciling with Sarah. We discussed the possibility of setting up a trust for the child's expenses rather than paying Sarah directly. The attorney stressed that any decisions about custody or support should be formalized through the court to protect my rights. Armed with this information, I finally called Sarah back. It was a difficult conversation, but I managed to stay calm and focused. Here's what went down. 1. I told her in no uncertain terms that reconciliation is off the table. Her actions destroyed our marriage, and her current motivations are transparent and selfish. 2. I explained that I'm willing to take responsibility if the child is mine, but that means a paternity test is non-negotiable. 3. I made it clear that if the child is mine, I intend to be involved in their life, but that doesn't mean playing happy families with her. We'd be co-parents, nothing more. 4. I shut down her attempts to discuss my financial situation, telling her that any support for the child would be determined legally and based on the child's needs, not her desires. Sarah didn't take it well. She oscillated between tears, anger, and attempting to manipulate my emotions. She accused me of being cruel, of abandoning her when she needed me most. But I stood my ground. The paternity test is scheduled for next week, as soon as it's safe to perform given Sarah's current stage of pregnancy. Until we have those results, everything else is on hold. In the meantime, I've started seeing a therapist to work through my feelings about the whole situation. It's early days, but I think it's going to be really helpful in processing everything that's happened and preparing for the potential challenges ahead. I'm still nervous about what the future holds, but I feel more in control now. Whatever happens, I'm committed to doing right by this child if it's mine, while also protecting myself emotionally and financially. Thank you all again for your advice and support. It really helped me find the strength to handle this situation head on. I'll update again once I have the paternity test results. Edit 3, final update. It's been a roller coaster few weeks, but I finally have some closure on this whole situation. Buckle up, because there's been quite a twist. First, the paternity test results came back. And I'm not the father. Yeah, I was shocked too. After all the drama and emotional turmoil, it turns out the baby isn't mine after all. I had mixed feelings about this, relief, certainly, but also a strange sense of loss for a future I'd started to imagine. When I informed Sarah of the results, her reaction was unexpected. Instead of being upset or apologetic, she became defensive and angry. She accused me of somehow faking the results, as if that's even possible, and insisted that I was just trying to get out of my responsibilities. That's when things got really interesting. In her anger, Sarah let slip something that changed everything. She mentioned a specific date when she was sure we'd been intimate, a date when I was actually out of town for a work conference. I had photos, receipts, everything to prove I wasn't even in the same state. Confronted with this evidence, Sarah finally broke down and admitted the truth. She had lied about the baby being mine. In reality, it was Richard's child all along. Her plan, apparently, was to use my newfound wealth to support her and the baby, while keeping Richard's involvement a secret. She thought that with enough pressure and manipulation, she could convince me to take her back and raise the child as my own. I was stunned. The level of deception and manipulation was beyond anything I could have imagined. Any lingering doubts or feelings I had about Sarah were obliterated in that moment. After taking some time to process this new information, I decided to take action. 1. I've completely cut contact with Sarah. She's blocked on every platform, and I've made it clear through my lawyer that any further attempts at communication will be considered harassment. 2. I've informed Richard about the baby. Whatever I think of him personally, he has a right to know he's going to be a father. What he does with that information is up to him. 3. I'm continuing with therapy to work through all of this. The betrayal, the manipulation, the whiplash of emotions, it's a lot to process. 4. I'm refocusing on my own life and future. I've decided to use some of my inheritance to start my own software company, something I've always dreamed of doing. 5. I'm also looking into using some of the money to set up a foundation to help people who've been through similar situations, providing legal aid, counseling, and support to those dealing with infidelity and difficult divorces. Looking back, I can see how close I came to being manipulated into a life that would have made me miserable. As painful as this whole experience has been, I'm grateful for the clarity it's given me. To everyone who offered advice, shared their own stories, or just provided a listening ear, thank you. Your support helped me stay strong and make decisions that were right for me, not just what was easiest or what others wanted. As for me, I'm looking forward to the future for the first time in a long while. It's not the future I once imagined, but I'm excited to see where this new path leads. Edit 4. Hey Reddit, it's been a while since my last update, but something happened recently that I felt I should share. It's a small update, but it brought some unexpected closure to this whole saga. About a month ago, I received a letter. It was from Richard, of all people. I was hesitant to open it at first, but curiosity got the best of me. What I read left me speechless. Richard apologized. Not just a superficial sorry it happened kind of apology, but a genuine, heartfelt one. He took full responsibility for his actions, acknowledging the pain and chaos he'd caused in my life. He explained that the whole ordeal had been a wake-up call for him, forcing him to reevaluate his life choices and behavior. He also shared that he had decided to step up and take responsibility for his child. He and Sarah aren't together, thank goodness, but he's committed to being an involved father. He's even taken a step back from his high-powered job to focus on his personal life and repairing his relationship with his older children. The letter concluded with him expressing hope that one day, I might find it in my heart to forgive him, though he understands if I never do. I'll be honest, this letter stirred up a lot of emotions. Anger, resentment, but also a strange sense of relief. It doesn't undo the hurt, but it does help me close this chapter of my life knowing that some good came out of all this mess. As for me, life is looking up. My new company is taking off, the foundation I started is helping people, and I've even started dating again. It's early days, but it feels good to be open to the possibility of love and trust once more. I don't know if I'll ever fully forgive Richard or Sarah, but I'm no longer letting their actions define my life. I'm moving forward, focusing on the future, and for the first time in a long time, I'm genuinely excited about what's to come. Thanks again for all your support throughout this journey, Reddit. Your advice and encouragement truly helped me navigate one of the toughest periods of my life. Wishing you all the best.